Hi, I'm Megan Tillery, and I'm Assistant Professor of Biology at Patrick Henry Community College. I currently teach anatomy, physiology, microbiology, general biology, and Math 3. I've used cooperative learning in many activities, and the activity that you will be seeing is looking at cell structure and cell organization. You can use this particular activity in general biology, microbiology, as well as anatomy and physiology. It also can be changed to different things. This is actually anatomy and physiology class I used, so I looked at animal cells and look at organelles in that particular cell. But you can actually change it to look at plant cells if you're using it for biology, general biology, or microbiology. You can look at cellular structures in bacteria cells, or protists, or any alternative to that. This activity actually works really well. Most students learn about cell organelles in 5th grade and then 7th grade and 10th grade, so hopefully by the community college level that they have a base understanding of these particular organelles. What I first did is, there's not really too much prep time. I organized groups, and the day of the class I put students in particular groups, and then I assigned them an organelle that they had to do. An example would be the nucleus. So we had about a group of students, about 3 or 4, that would study the nucleus. I gave them a kind of an outline to use, and they could use it for notes when the other students were presenting, and the outline basically looked at structure and components as well as the function. So going back to this group with the nucleus, they had to know the structure and components like nuclear pores, nucleoli, looking at the genetic material in there. And then they had to know the function, basically pretty much the brain of the cell, and looking at a little bit of DNA replication and looking at RNA. So this group was come together. To make this actually a little more of a critical thinking activity, the group was not going to present just that portion to the class. They had to actually add on some more thinking. So they had to take that particular organelle and relate it to a real life situation, or something that the classmates can actually relate to. They also had to come up with a slogan or logo, so for different types of learning styles that the students can actually relate. An example would be Golgi apparatus. The example I gave to my class would be that it receives, ships, and packs. So an example they could use is the UPS, and they could use a slogan for UPS because that's pretty much the same thing. So the students actually, after I organized them in groups, I handed out or I assigned them a particular organelle, and they had to come up with a blank sheet of paper that they actually brought to the class. And this sheet of paper could be something with the structure and the function, but it also had to be almost like an advertisement for that particular organelle. So after the groups, probably gave them about 20 minutes to do in the groups, and they all did their presentations for the class. The rest of the class actually used a note sheet to fill in the notes. And after that, we had basically a discussion. They also drew part of the cell on the wall. So we had to the front of the classroom, they did their advertisement, or basically their one-page note sheet. And then to the side walls, we have dry erase boards, and they actually had to draw the different components on these cells that we had, just so you can kind of bring all those organelles together for one big picture of that living cell. After we completed that and all the presentations were done, then I look at further learning and add more critical thinking to check for understanding of these students. The first thing I did is I showed a little video. It's a Harvard cell video, and it has basically an animation of a living cell, and I made them in their groups look at this particular video and see what types of organelles they see. After that, I could switch up the groups, or I can keep in the same groups. I actually have case studies that pertain to cell organelles and looking at their function. So an example of a case study would be to look at a red blood cell, and red blood cells do not contain mitochondria or nucleus. So basically you would have to know the function of the nucleus and the mitochondria, and then kind of look at the cell, or this would be for anatomy physiology, why wouldn't a red blood cell, knowing the function of a red blood cell, why wouldn't it have a nucleus and a mitochondria? So basically I have a list of those case studies. Cystic fibrosis, looking at the Golgi apparatus, and looking at transport would be another example of a case study. You can find these case studies on the Scale website under the Anatomy and Physiology link. To check for positive interdependence and individual accountability, I gave them one sheet of paper, so it was resource dependent after I put them in groups, so they had to work together. For individual accountability, there's different levels. when they are doing a particular presentation, they're not sure who's going to present and who's going to draw on the board. So I can say something like the student with the shortest name is going to get up and present for the group, and the student with the longest name, as an example, has to go draw it on the board. So right before their presentations to the class, they actually know who's going to present. And this is actually helpful, so it makes sure the whole group is working together and that everyone is familiar with the particular assignment and what their presentation is. And the case studies, when I give the case studies, and if they're going to do it a group assignment, I can also put out roles in that particular group. Like one person will be writing the answer to the case study, one could be a leader, one could be a time manager, and one could be a checker. And checking for participation as well as checking that everything's correct. Maybe that person will have the textbook just to make sure that the information and they're looking up what's proper. For group processing, they're basically, I don't really do a group processing after this. I kind of address to the class, what did you do well, what do you think you could do better as a group. For social skills, we actually are using the different higher levels of social skills, and especially when they relate to Bloom's taxonomy and critical thinking, of basically using that knowledge and then applying it towards the case study. And then again, social skills are important. Face-to-face, of course, they're in groups, so that covers the fifth element. This assignment has been great. It can be used in 5th grade, it can be used in 7th grade, 10th grade, and so on. Just, change the different levels. And my students really enjoyed it, and they got real creative, and that was actually exciting because it actually brings in the different talents of the students. You have a book-smart student who has it one way, but then you have a drawer who actually is excited about using their art skills, and then someone else is creative. So I think this activity is great for all levels, and it actually increased learning. Another individual accountability for this particular activity is that they will be seeing this again on their first exam of the semester. So then I can actually look at the levels of understanding through multiple choice questions as well as short answer to know if they understand all the structure and functions of all the organelles. Thank you for watching my video. If you have any questions, you can also see my handout, which is in the classroom activities, or email me. Thank you.